Hey everybody, it's Kristina of CraftyPaws. I am so excited to be a guest designer for the Greeting Farm. As you guys know, I love the stamp company. They make the cutest little images, and today I'm going to share with you guys how I made 5 Valentine's Day cards really quick and easy. And I'm going to show you the coloring process of most of this and kind of how I designed them. But the 2 sets that I used are Forever with You and hashtag couple goals. They're so stinking cute, and I am going to show you guys how I slightly alter one of the stamps to be more personalized for one of the recipients. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a little bit of washi tape to mask off the kitty ears before I ink up the stamp. Then I remove the washi tape, and then I stamp out the image so the little pointed ears are gone, and I'm using a Copic multi-liner. This is a 0.05, and I'm just gonna doodle in little puppy dog ears. If I made them longer, it could be like a bunny rabbit. If I made them little round half circles, it could be more like a teddy bear. It's so easy to alter these really cutesy, simple images. And this particular person who's going to be getting this loves dogs. So I'm going to doodle on these little ears, and then I'm also going to make a little spot on the left side here. Oh, I doodled in a little nose to give it more of a doggy look than a kitty look. And I'm doodling on that little spot there, kind of going over the top whisker. Now I'm just going to show you guys all of the coloring. So for this first couple, I'm going to do a senior couple. This is going to be a card for my parents, and I'm going to use some facial or skin tone colors that have more of a yellowish undertone because that's how they are. They're Asian, obviously, as I am. So I'm using like an E50, an E51, and an R30 to give them just slightly rosy cheeks. If I wanted to have it more kind of red rosy, I would use an R20 probably, or even an R21. But this, I'm just blending back out from the shadowed areas underneath their hair, by the sides of their face with the E50, and the shadowed areas I did with a 51. Now for the gentleman's hair, I'm using a C0 just to kind of mark in where I think the shadows are going to be. And then I'm using a slightly darker C3. So these cool gray tones I think are great, especially when they're combined with white areas. I could have left it almost like this, but I decided to add in the darker hair because my dad really has salt and pepper hair. I guess more white now as he's in his 80s, but you know, there's still hints of the black hair interspersed with the silver hair. So I wanted to give that sense, and I really wanted to add in the texture of the hair, which is great in this image. And I'm going to give slightly lighter silver hair to the image that's going to represent my mom. So I'm adding a C00. And by the way, if you're interested in the exact colors that I used, I have all of them listed for each of the images that I color up in my accompanying blog post, which is linked in the description box below. But basically you see here where there are kind of valleys in her hair. I'm adding the darker tones as if it's like a valley, and the bump outs are kind of highlighted with the lighter tones. And I'm going in again also with a C7. I could have, like I said, for the gentleman, also not use such a dark, cool gray. I could have stopped at a C5, but I wanted to give her all of that depth of color. And also you see that her hair extends down a little bit further beyond her scarf, but I've just rounded the bottom because my mom doesn't have long hair. She has short hair. And I'm using a Signo Uniball white gel pen to add white, more white to their hair. And you see that it kind of covers up the darker shadowed areas, but I'm going to fix that. But I just wanted to show you guys how you can, you know, go back and forth between light and dark, especially with white, if that's part of the color scheme of what you're coloring up with gel pens. Now I'm going back in after the white gel pen has completely dried, and make sure it has completely dried if you're going to do this over coloring over top of the white gel pen, because you don't want to ruin the nibs of your Copic markers. But you can do that if the gel pen has fully dried. So I'm adding some more shadows back in with a C3 and a C5. And now for their scarf, since this is going to be a Valentine's Day card, I'm adding some hearts. And you can see they're not all hearts straight across in a row. I wanted it to really look like how hearts would be on a big scarf. So some of them are partial hearts, the bottoms, the sides. I just wanted to kind of intersperse them throughout the scarf part of this image. And I'm just, again, doodling those in, and then I'm going to quickly color them up with an R. I believe this is a 24 or 27. So I love this color combination of red with blue greens. So I'm coloring up the base of the scarf with the BG11, and it's reading really, really pale. So you'll see I'm going to try and add in some of the shadowing with the BG23, which is good. And it does add shadows like under the chin where the scarf overlaps or under, is under the other side. But I really need more contrast. So I'm doing a tip to tip coloring, touching the tip of the BG23 to the BG49, and then coloring with that ink that's transferred onto the lighter pen color. And you can see that that adds a really good gradation. And that's the finished card. I'm going to go back and show you guys how I composed it, but I wanted to show you all of the coloring. I'm actually coloring up 5 different couples, but I'm going to show you, I think, 4 of them fully. The video is starting to get really long. So as you can see here, I've sped up this coloring process. If you want to see it in real time, you can slow down the video, but I wanted to go ahead and try and include as much as I can so that for those of you who are interested in seeing, kind of repetitious, but how I go about coloring these little images, you can see that here. I'm using an E000, a 00, a 01, and an R30 to color up this little cute couple that I'm going to color up to be kind of, middle-aged folks. This is for my sister and her husband, and they're taking a little selfie. They like to travel a lot, or they used to before COVID hit. And so I wanted this to represent kind of their life that they hope to get back to. So I'm coloring up their skin that way and adding some rosy cheeks with some R30, blending out those rosy areas with the E00. And then I'm adding some little shoes for the girls. I don't know why these images don't have shoes for the little girls. They have them for the boys. I don't know. So I doodled on those little shoes, and I'm coloring up the shoes in bright red because I just thought that would be nice and festive. And it reminds me of when I was a little girl, and I love these red Mary Janes that I had. So this little boy's shirt, I thought it was a little too plain just to be all red. So I am doodling in a second here, the stripes on his shirt. And you see here, I've just decided to repeat the color for the shirt of the girl that's being held up, the dress of the little girl that's holding the camera, and I'm adding some shadows where I think there might be kind of, the fabric might have cinched a little, or where there's a little shadow under her chin or on the edges of the dress. And I'm giving her a cap sleeve here because my sister wouldn't wear a sleeveless dress. And I'm, of course, adding these little polka dots and that little cuff sleeve of that dress with a Copic multi-liner pen again. This is one of my favorite things to do, to add a little detail, add a little something that personalizes an image to the recipient. And here, like I said, I'm adding stripes to this little boy's shirt, just for some added interest to this little image. Although it's such a cute image, you don't need anything, but I just thought to add a little bit back of that kind of darker tones. I'm using a C10 for the shoes of the little boys. And now I'm going to go back in and color in some kind of cool grays for this little boy's pants, starting off with the lightest color, C2, adding a little shadow with a C4, or maybe that's a C5, and then I'm blending with a C4. And I decide I'm going to try and do that same light gray color for the little boy, but I'm going to think better of it in a minute. I'm coloring the inside of his mouth dark, cool gray, but I'm going to leave the bottom half white. I could have left it like teeth, or later on I think I actually color it like it's a tongue. But here you see I'm coloring the pants up again the same way as I did for the little boy holding up the girl. For the boy here, just with simple medium tone grays. And then here I decide see there, I'm coloring in the tongue for the little boy. And I'm going to repeat this lighter gray tone for this little girl's skirt. I thought I would try to keep these color palettes pretty tight. Gray, black, red, and then skin tones and hair tones. And all of these characters are having brunette hair, black, silver, brunette, dark brown kind of colors. just because that happens to be the people who are going to be receiving these cards. And here I decide, as you can see, I've decided to color up that shirt red because I thought that boy was turning out too muted as compared to the little girl with a polka dot dress. And I just thought he needed a little more, pop for his shirt. Now here you see me doodling in the bottom of this girl's hair. My sister does not have long hair anymore, so I thought I would just give her a little bob. I'm not worried about the part underneath because I'm just going to be fussy cutting all of this out. And here you see this little couple, the boy holding up the little girl, is representing my nephew and his girlfriend. So I'm giving him neutral grays. I usually do cool grays for Asian hair, but I thought I would just mix it up and add some neutral grays. And I'm adding some highlights with the blue quadruple zero. I'm finding that the quadruple zero is a little bit too faint, so I think I end up adding a darker blue, but we'll see. And you see me just blending out, flicking, coloring. Yeah, here we go. B00. So it's a little bit darker blue. I just wanted to give him higher highlights. And I'm using the same color for the boy up top. But mind you, I'm going to be adding some silver tones to that. So I think you're going to see again the use of the gel pen. But here I'm just trying to figure out kind of where the little sections of hair are going to be connecting to where the little boy's part is. And it's funny because my brother-in-law also parts his hair way over to the side. He's not going bald or anything. He has a full head of hair, but I just think it's funny that that little image was like that too. So I'm giving him some more depth of color in his hair with an N2, an N5, an N6. And I'm not trying to cover up the whole part of his hair because he does have some silver hair. So I wanted to leave some of those highlights to the extent I could while still trying to, maintain the different texture of the hair, the different segments of the hair from the image. So I'm going back in and adding the depth of color with that N6 and the N5 to blend to the N2. And here you see me adding the highlights with the white gel pen, and I really like how this looks. You have to be careful because sometimes the gel pen ink just runs out really fast and sometimes it doesn't come out at all. If it doesn't come out, just rub it against your finger, the warmth of your finger. But it was kind of just oozing out here. So I'm going back in here again after the gel pen had dried with some N5 for that kind of reinstating kind of the darker shadows for that guy's hair. For this girl who represents my sister, I've added darker blue. It's a B00, and I'm going in with lighter N0 and N3. And I think, I'm adding lots of flicking to give a good hair texture, but it's just too light. So I'm adding some N5, and I think that's a pretty good balance. It's not too dark. She's decided to let her hair go naturally silver. So I think that N5 is actually pretty close to how her hair color is at this point. And I really like how that blends nicely together. Those neutral grays, which I don't often use, I've found really easy to use here. Now for this girl that's being held up by my nephew, I've decided to give her like a warmer brunette color. So I'm doing an E40 for the lightest shade. Then I'm going in and marking in where the darkest shadows would be with the W7. That's a warm gray. So the under parts of the bottom of her hair where the hair indents from the top crown to the side, on both sides of her hair, on her face. And then I'm blending back in with that W4. And I think I go back over trying to find another mid-tone. So I'm going in to get a little bit more of a deeper tone to her hair because she has essentially black hair. It's just a little bit warmer in shade. So I add that W5, an extra layer of texture and depth for this image. And then for the darkest areas, I decide I'm going to go all in, go with the W9 and get really, really dark where the hair would be shadowed from her face along the sides at the deepest shadows. And this is the paper pad I used. I had like a third of this paper pack left. It's from Doodlebug Design. And that's the die set I use for all of these cards. It makes it really simple to design cards when you just limit the number of products you're using. And that's a Doris die set called Love Theme, and I'll put a link in the description box below. I've had this for a couple of years, but I know it's still available and on sale, so I'll link that. I love this die set. It's so simple, but there's so much you can do with it because it has that scalloped heart die frame, and so you get the inside inset, and then it has an XOXO, and it also has an arrow. So I've stacked the frame heart, with multiple layers and glued those together so that I can get the depth of like a thicker. And I've done a couple of layers for this XOXO, and I'm just trying to position this XOXO underneath with enough space above and below. This is a slightly larger than normal card because this is for my parents and they like larger cards. So it's not the standard size, but you get the idea. And all of these cards I've decided to really take time to decorate the interior. And I think all of the papers pretty much are from that paper pad from Doodlebug Designs called Love Birds, if I didn't mention that previously. And I'm just using the extras. The small hearts are from the O's, and the larger heart is from the inside of the frame. And I'm just going to place them inside. I had this XOXO pattern paper also from the background cutout, and that's the completed card for my parents. And you can see the front and the inside there. And I think it came out really cute. This is the card for my nephew and his girlfriend, slightly more simplified, and that's the interior. I had some scraps of paper, also that silver paper, that's the inside liner I had in my scrap box. And I'm just showing you, this is how I'm putting the cards together. I have the background, pattern paper, then I have the frame that I've layered. As you can see, that's a different pattern on the underside, that I put the thicker level, and then I decide what pattern paper I'm going to use for behind the little couple, and I glue those in place, and then I pop up the actual couple image on foam dots. This is a card that I've made for a friend who loves cats. That's the front, and that's the inside. And then I'm going to show you the front and the inside of the card for my niece and her boyfriend. This is one that I use that die of the arrow. I cut it in half and split it so that it would go on either side of the heart. And this is for my sister and her husband. That's the front and that's the inside. I use scraps, obviously, for the inside liner, and I think it looks great to add some interest. And this is a picture of all 5 cards. I think it came out really cute. It was super fast and easy. If you get a chance, please go check out the Greeting Farm. They have such adorable images. Thank you so much for sticking with me and watching this coloring process video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.